All right, so we got this call is now being recorded. Welcome back to our Monday afternoon. It's just us, my two sections on this side. It was nice to talk to Dr. Chambers last week, but it's also nice to get back to our little routine. I believe consensus is that this is the last Monday at 4 o'clock, and that next Monday will be at 9. Is that accurate? Okay. Just going to make a note for myself. And I will send that out as an announcement to the group. All right, we've been on a journey here with differentiated instruction, instructional practices. I want to take the first part of this afternoon to review the last couple weeks, if you will. Okay, so relative to what you should have submitted over these last couple weeks were the draft and then the final copy. So I want to go back to last week. As far as if you did it, you should get the points for it. It's called a draft. So there was an original lesson, there was a modified lesson, and then there was a reflection. So 3 parts towards getting the 25 points. Again, as far as draft goes, I was gracious, gave some people some comments. Some people chose to resubmit their drafts. Wonderful. But regardless of whether you did good on the draft, you didn't do good on the draft, you should have posted your final copies. And I believe I got back to everyone via email if they had a question, comment, or concern. If I did not alleviate your question, comment, or concern, then please continue to communicate with me. But I will be finishing up grading this evening, possibly tomorrow morning, relative to the final copies of the original lesson plan, the modified lesson plan, and then the reflection. I apologize for working on my keyboard here while you can't see that. Okay, so the second part here, and with almost a year under our belt now, relative to supporting these diverse learners, not only looking at this lesson as an exercise, but where did you feel you started as a teacher, and now with you have more experiential knowledge than you do as far as instructional knowledge. Where do you think you are now in your instruction relative to knowing that some kids are going to do things differently and then trying to do things differently for them? would anyone want to care to share their journey over this year?
I think for me, it's just going to be a continual learning process throughout my entire career. I think everything's going to be changing. And as long as you're open minded and understanding that it's coming from, you can teach from multiple different angles to get to the students and meet them where they are. I think that's going to be the best part. So I think, every year that I finish teaching, I'm a little bit better than I was the year before. And hopefully that's it moving forward.
I would add one caveat that too, in that you're always going to be learning, you're always going to be evolving, but the standard is the standard, right? And the goal is to use all those time and talent and efforts to get them to that standard. So yes, I do have the benefit, if you will, of looking back 30 years. And the way I did things 30 years ago, obviously different. And I even look at my administrative journey. I came into administration, building level administration around 2003, central administration around 2013. And I think that we go into any job, an assignment made with some preconceived notions based upon our experience as the subordinate, right? So if we go into teaching, we are trying to solve all those wrongs that perhaps we felt as students, and we start there. We go into administration, we want to show the staff that we work with that we're going to cure all the ills of any previous administration that we ever worked with. And just as you've grown over the course of your career relative to teaching and relative to meeting standards and meeting students where they are, I think the same holds true as we go into our different journeys. Obviously mine being administration. Others on the journey relative to where you were at the beginning of the year or even the beginning of your career as a teacher and where you are now. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, so I definitely, this was the end of my first year, started kind of like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Well, how did I learn? How was I taught? So it was very more structured. Okay, I need to do a theory. Homework assignments are going to be read from the book and do a little quiz. And then 2 or 3 weeks in, I quickly learned that there's been leaps and bounds of technological advances. I had never heard of a Kahoot or an Ed puzzle or all these different ways to explore to be able to get the message across to all the students. So I'm looking forward to actually learning how to use these different tools into more depth than what I like. I've just scratched the surface on everything. And I'm definitely looking forward to being able to incorporate more of this stuff into just the day to day. Just so overall, just a better learning environment for everybody.
Right. So you started with your experiences that you knew as a student, right? And now you're growing into their experiences as a student. How are you going to provide experiences for them? My father, I went into the family business. My father was a public educator. My father retired as a superintendent, the superintendent of Laurel, where I'm at now, where I graduated from. So it's been a little interesting journey on my end, trying to literally fill his shoes and fill his seat. But he always used to look at it this way. The first 3 years of your career, you're learning how to teach. Yeah. And in the academic world, right, they've already had 4 years of training. But, they have 3 years there of learning how to teach. Huge growth. All right. And then he looked at the next 3 years, almost in the trade world, we're going from an apprentice to now a journeyman. Right. And then after your 6 years, you've gotten your 24 additional credits. You've gotten your tenure. You've gotten your instructional or vocational 2. You should have a certain level of mastery by that point. Not that, going back to what Amanda says, we won't continue to refine what we do. I just mentioned to a teacher that I work with today that I found this experience to be reinvigorating to a degree. You know, I haven't been a teacher since 2003. Little side note: 5 years of CCD, but teaching my kids. But anyway, long story made short. So now that I come back, and quite frankly, you have different expectations. Than what mine have been, and quite, I wouldn't have even been able. I couldn't see myself commuting to a classroom in Pittsburgh Monday evening and doing this. So you know, we're doing this in a little different method. When I did my superintendent's letter of eligibility, it was similar, but we had no virtual meets. So we had readings and a writing due on Tuesday, readings and a writing due on Friday, and we would have to post about what other people posted about and respond to that, but there was no dialogue. One thing I do like about this setup, and quite frankly, I hope you do too, is I kind of look forward to this little hour. I enjoy hearing from you, and I hope that what I'm providing to you is practical and valuable. I found some of my best professors along the way to my principalship really were not only knowledgeable and prepared me, but also very practical in that this is what it's going to look like when you venture out. Related to what you said too about Kahoot or Edpuzzle, you now have these tools where not only do the students gravitate to that and they'll embrace that, but now you almost have that instantaneous feedback as to where they are. Here's your summative assessment, right? I thought they were at point A, they are at point A. I thought they were in point B, no, they're not. You know, so or some are and some aren't, and then it allows you to circle back. I also think that relative to differentiation, or quite frankly, a good practice, it's easy for teachers to say, I accomplished my curriculum. Here it is. Here's the task grid. Check day 1, check day 2, check day 3. All of a sudden, 180 days, I have 180 checks, right? I taught it. I don't know if they learned it, but I taught it. So I think it's also a good idea to not only hone in on your formative assessment, but also hone in on spiraling back to things you've already done that you assume that they've had, or perhaps weren't related to concepts that you've gone forward with, and you need to go back and get them, because true mastery, they're going to have to use it, or they're going to have to lose it. One of your colleagues, and I'm not hiding a name deliberately, I just don't remember each specific thing that was attributed to each of you, but I do remember some of what I've gone over. And I found it interesting. They were talking about an employee showing up to industry, right? And what you're trying to teach that new employee versus trying to teach that same thing to a high school kid. It's so different. It's so different. First of all, developmentally, if your kids, I believe this, if your kids don't know that you care, they don't care what you know. So they have to know that you're in it not only for your passion for your trade, but your passion for kids and your passion for education. I see teachers that have some classroom management problems aren't necessarily bad teachers and aren't necessarily disorganized or anything like that. It's that as one coach once told me, the players can smell you. All right, they know whether you're authentic. The kids know whether you're authentic, and I think if they sense a little bit that you're there for anything other than them, I think you're going to struggle. The best kids are going to do it no matter what, but that pocket of kids that we need to reach needs to know that you care before they need to know what you know, and I think that's part of differentiation as well. But again, going back to your reflections and going back to where you started, if you're a first year or 3 year or whatever, and where you are now. Anybody else want to share some of their journey about whether they start out this year and where they are, or where they start out in their career and where they are?
I'll speak on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this will be the end of my 3rd year, but 2nd year officially teaching. And what I notice as routine is definitely, having our students for 3 years. I think now they all sort of get the routine, and I plan on switching my hands-on quite a bit next year. But I also know that I have to stick to my core routine for them. I got a new textbook coming in, and I want to pull directly from there and have 3 different levels of recipe development right within that textbook, and assign it differently than I have in previous years. But I don't know. You go through it, you see what works, you see what doesn't work. I think this next step is going to be more organized and allow me to love the classroom even more. Because I've heard from some other teachers, if you don't love your classroom, it's your fault, and change it, because we have that autonomy. So it's really nice to be able to. I'm looking forward to changing it all over the summer. That's where I'm at.
That reminds me of another student who wrote about inheriting some lessons, some not, from their predecessor, and trying out some of the things that the predecessor left. Not that they left lessons on everything, and what works and what doesn't. And what I would say is, even the content is what the content is, regardless of whether you're taking culinary, your school, my school, whatever, right? We all have the same content, but the pedagogy is different. And the lab, if you will, is different. Your shop is different. So I wholeheartedly believe that whoever was telling you that is on the right track. Make it yours. Ownership, identity. How about make it theirs? How can you incorporate them into the design of the classroom, displays of the classroom, or your kitchen, right? What ownership can they have? A couple summers ago, a book was recommended to me called "It's Your Ship," and on the surface, you think that it's about a commander taking on a ship, right? Because it's his ship. Well, the your in his leadership style is a you plural. Let me share this with you. So, $17 book. It's your ship, but on his ship, and he took a very low producing boat in the Navy to a very high achieving boat in the Navy, and he taught these junior commanders that if you want to know what the ensign is doing and how he could do it better, ask the ensign, right? So in my leadership growth, I know that I have to have some must-haves, okay? What must we have? But how we get that done really needs to be with the input of those who are going to do it. So if you're looking for a summer read, It's Your Ship might be something for you relative to that. It's on Amazon Audible. Thank you, Colleen. Okay. All right. I wanted to take some time today to discuss what's coming up. All right. And all right. So all of you can see this. No, you can't. I got to share. Here we go. All right. So I want to talk through this assignment. So I see some of you have already posted, and some of you have not. Some of you are still in school, and some of you have not. So let's go through this assignment and see what can be done and what can't be done. All right, let's talk about the lesson plan. Create a detailed lesson plan that incorporates strategies for. So whether it's your school's format, the Point Park format, your own individual format, you're going to generate a lesson plan. And as far as what I'm going to look for, right, I'm going to go write down those bullets and make sure that those bullets are there. Record lesson implementation. You know, I think the way we build an inclusive classroom isn't to have a lesson plan on building an inclusive classroom. You know, the way you have an inclusive classroom is the way you conduct yourself each and every day. And I think one of the things we have lost relative to inclusivity is dialogue. Inclusivity does not mean agreement. Inclusivity means respect and tolerance. I find particularly, I'm going to take our national leaders. I think they all need behavior plans. I think they're all bordering on emotional support. And I don't want to go down rabbit holes of the money and everything else, but come on. What happened to dialogue? You know, if you're going to have a product, like for example, when I sit down to an admin meeting and I'm at a table, I'm one of 10 to 12 people in that meeting. If the district or the school is facing an issue and we go around the table relative to what they manage, they're going to have a particular perspective and opinion on that issue and how we need to deal with it. And what I'm hoping for is when we go around, I want to hear some variety of opinion and analysis. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to hear 12 different opinions. I want to look for some commonalities and maybe a starting point. Or if I throw out a starting point, I want to hear from them as far as what they think about that starting point and where we need to go. But it's got to be okay to disagree. Let me pose this. Okay. Inclusivity, agreement versus disagreement. What do you think about what I said relative to inclusivity does not necessarily mean agreement? Nobody wants to take a stab at that. Come on.
Can you agree to disagree?
Amen. Why not? Amen. I wholeheartedly believe that. Why can't we get to a point where, you know what, maybe on this issue we're going to agree to disagree? And I'll give you an example. So, in dealing with principals, you know, I was a principal at one time, but I'm not a principal now. I may want things done a particular way. They may not, and we'll talk about it. But what if at the end of the talk we disagree? Well, in this particular scenario, I'll tell you what I do is I tell them the following. Okay, it's your building. We're going to do it your way. If it works. If it doesn't work, we're going to do it my way. But at that point, we've agreed to disagree, but he still or she still has the empowerment. Civility. What you're getting at is civility. So when we talk about being inclusive, civility needs to be part of that. Because if you look with those, go through those bullets. All right, if we're going to talk about being positive and inclusive means civility, respect, tolerance, and the ability to respectfully disagree. So let's see how that goes. Engaging all students through differentiated instruction. Of course we are. Encouraging collaboration among students. I find it, so some of you talked about choice and allowing students to pick their pairs. There's value in that. I wouldn't always do it that way, but there's also value in agitating their comfort zone and shuffle the deck. Put them with people maybe they never speak to. Put them with people who maybe they've said things to. There's value in not only allowing choice and getting them to pick their choices for think, pair, share, or for collaboration, but there's also value in you picking that. Addressing behavioral and social emotional needs. I find, and one of you just mentioned that about the structure of your classroom. You need to do the same. Colleen, I think it was you. You have some type of routine every day. Kids will respond to that. They know. The content might change. How we're going to go about our stuff today might change, but I know Colleen's going to come in. We're going to start the lesson with A. We're going to go to B. We're going to go to C. So as far as minimizing behavioral or social concerns, kids respond to consistency. Think about your own workplace. Don't you respond to consistency if your administrator is consistent? How do you feel? And I'm sure none of you feel this way, but how do you feel if your administrator is inconsistent or you don't know where they stand on today versus tomorrow, or they made a decision today that was A and tomorrow it's B without explaining why there's a change? So think about how you feel about inconsistency and transplant that to your students. They're not going to feel much better about it either. Record the lesson. Okay. So here's the issue of where we are. Is there anyone not able to record or has not recorded a lesson? James, go ahead.
Well, I recorded one, but it was like earlier this year, and my lesson plan might not have all of this in here, but I can change my lesson plan to reflect that.
Well, and perhaps if it's, and I'll get to everybody in the queue here, perhaps if it wasn't deliberately in there, you might be able to annotate where it was performed. So yes, I would go ahead and if you have that lesson recorded, I think you annotate in the upload relative to that's what you've done, and that you try to identify where these other parts of the lesson are.
Okay. Yeah, this was for the previous school that I was attending Penn State before I came to this one. So it was already done. So I just want to I'll try to get it done correctly.
Do your best. Emily? I've not been able to record and we are out now, so I'll get to Diane.
It's not that I haven't been able to, I just haven't yet. So it should be interesting, but we'll do it.
Great statement. Ryan?
Yeah, I'm also out and I haven't been able to do that. So.
And you have no previous recording, unlike James.
Yeah, I haven't done it. So is this something I'm just going to do in my kitchen?
So, yeah, and do what? You got dogs, cats. There's going to be your students.
I got nieces and nephews. I could do a lesson for them.
What I want to see who has what. So I see 3 groups right now. 1, people who can do it, great. 2, people like James who've got a lesson and could submit it, great. And then there's people like you who are out of luck. Chad?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat because the last month or so we're expanding our program, so I didn't have a classroom for the last since like the end of April. I've been bouncing around, and we've been painting our shop and everything, so I had no avenue to do that. I'd be willing to talk to an empty room if that's something you want. I can always go in and do that, but that would be the best I'd be able to do.
Brody and Shelby.
Hi, he has his done. I have not gotten mine done yet, but I have plans to go in Thursday to record. We are out of school, but I was gonna see if maybe I can like pull some coworkers to see if they could sit in for a few minutes.
All right, so let me differentiate. So if you can perform the task as written, and you're still in session, or while you were in session, you recorded a lesson. That's number 1. Number 2, if you choose to be, I forget which one, Brody or Shelby said that they're going to go in. If you choose to do a mock lesson in front of a mock student body, you could do that. But let's talk about Ryan. Okay. So let's look. So, Ryan, what I would like you to do, and others in Ryan's situation, all right, you're going to submit and upload a document where you're going to, so we know what it is, you're going to call it the recorded lesson implementation. Okay. Calling over your nieces and nephews, or, saying it to your cats and dogs. Yeah, you'll get it on film. Okay. I want to try to create something valuable. So it says there, teach and record a lesson demonstrating techniques outlined in your lesson plan. So let's go back. So Ryan, you can do number 1. You can do the lesson plan, right? I'm going to encourage you to do this. Do you have access to, since you're out, to your drive and look at your lessons? Okay. What I want you to do is look at a lesson that did not lend itself to any type of collaboration, and how your lessons evolved through the year. So what I would like you to do is you're going to use that document, all right? And then You can either write that document as a narrative relative to, here's where I had a lesson just by its design was less inclusive, less collaborative. Here's a lesson that was more inclusive, more collaborative.
So rewrite the lesson to be more collaborative and
I'd prefer that you have one that I want you to find one. For example, direct instruction is not very collaborative, right? The example I gave earlier, think, pair, share, turn and talk to a partner, more collaborative, right? So find one that wasn't, find that one that was. Now we have something to compare. You can narrate, you can write a document with lesson plan 1, with lesson plan 2, showing the collaboration. Now, if you don't want to write the comparison using Google Meet or something else, if you want to upload a video, here's my lesson 1. This is what it was. It was pretty direct, not very inclusive, not very collaborative. As a result, I recall that I had some students not paying attention, drifting off, etc. Here's lesson 2. This lesson lended itself to more student engagement, more collaboration, and I saw less behavioral and social emotional needs. Okay? So those of you who have no way of videoing a lesson, that will be your alternative. I will follow this up with articulation of those directions via an announcement. Okay? So, knowing your own situation, I'm providing the following. 1, a recorded lesson. Either you're going to record it of you and your students, or like James, you have recorded it. First pathway. Second pathway, you are going to have your coworkers or some other group be an audience, a student body, and you intend to record the video. Fine. Third opportunity is you're going to look at your own work, find one lesson that was less collaborative, find one lesson that was more collaborative. You're going to reflect upon each lesson relative to the bullets. And you can submit that either as a doc, or if you want to narrate and show me your 2 lessons and then narrate your comparison, you too can upload a video. So I think with those pathways, I've provided an opportunity for everybody. Is anyone still out in the cold? Hearing none, let's look at submission. Submission requirement: upload your lesson plan as a Word document using Point Park or the one from your school, or some of you don't have one from your school and you've done your own. Wonderful. And upload the recorded lesson. So all of you will be able to give me a Word document. All of you will be able to give me a video. Some of you are going to give me 2 documents, and I'm going to call those the Ryans again, because he can either video the comparison, or he can just submit the compare and contrast via doc. Fair? Okay. So I anticipated that we might need an alternate assignment based on this time of year. And I will share my directions with Chambers as well. I don't know what they're doing on that side. All right, and then foreshadowing to assessments is how I want to conclude this hour. And I want to encourage you, before you do anything on any of these modules, and even perhaps at the end, it's a good mindset to read these objectives, read these big ideas, and read these essential questions. You know, a big idea should be transferable outside of this one and only arena, i.e., education. And I believe assessment practices, accountability practices, you can find in multiple lines of work. In order for the question to be essential, you can't answer it yes or no. And there might not be a particularly black and white right answer. How can educators design assessments that are accessible and equitable for all learners? That's why. And there are 13, 14 people here. I can get 13, 14 answers on that. Now, in what ways can formative and summative assessment data be used to guide instructional decisions? Wide open, not a concrete black and white. Third, how does meaningful feedback contribute to student motivation, engagement, and growth? Again, wide open. But if you preview those questions, then you go and do what you have to do. Then you go and do your assignments, and you go back and you reread the objectives, the big idea, and the essential questions. You should have a deeper level of understanding. And one of the major flaws, if you will, in the last 40 minutes is this has been a lot of sage on stage. My voice has been louder and more often than your voice. So, you know, that might be a weakness relative to the format as well. But student voice should dominate instruction. Assessment, be it formative or summative, should not only tell the student where they are, but tell you where you are. All right, so for the next couple weeks, I believe, double check the syllabus. I'm going to look at my Canvas too here. All right, so Module 6 is going to be the inclusive environment. And that will be the video. And then Module 7, the inclusive classroom, will be your classroom reflection relative. And again, this will be a document. Content is defined. So how do you think we're doing so far? Are there any question, comment, or concern relative to finishing this course? Okay. Let me ask you, in your previous experiences, is there a post-course evaluation form? Did they ever give you that? Evaluate the Chad, you're nodding yes. They evaluate you get a chance to say if the content was any good or if the teacher was any good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had sent out some a form to fill out for survey on the forms. There's also a course reflection piece we have to write at the end. And I think it's discussed in the last Zoom.
Okay. All right, because I will be looking forward to some feedback relative to that. So many of you should already see your grade posted from the last assignment. All of you will see it no later than tomorrow. You have directions on how to get the next assignment done. I am encouraging you to preview those objectives, preview those big ideas, preview those essential questions, and then at the end, go back and review those objectives, review those big ideas, and review those essential questions. You should have a deeper level of understanding. We have the 3 pathways relative for this assignment. So I can open up for any general questions before I begin any concluding activities. All right, so we're all pretty comfortable where we are.
Is last week's journal reflections, they say missing right now? Is that just not graded yet?
Yeah. I focused on what did I focus on? I focused on the adapting curriculum, the 25-point assignment. Yes, I will. Thank you. Yeah, I will put that in Canvas before I leave work today, so that one will be updated. Thank you. Other question, comment, concern? All right. I do miss the interaction, if you will, of the classroom. I think we're getting something done. By the way, this is one of my favorite spots, Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina. Hope you all have a vacation scheduled and get to enjoy some time. So thank you, everybody. Ending school year at GCC and moving on, starting as there. You start with a different, thanks to you with this class. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Next Monday, 9 a.m. See ya.